Hello, everybody. Trying new greetings. I'm back, and I'm going to cover some more films for Halloween 2021. I believe this is part 10, and I'm just going to jump right in here. I've got two Italian-made films from 1964, and very different films, but both very influential in their own right. First one is Blood and Black Lace by Mario Bava. This is the super duper deluxe Arrow Video Blu-ray Plus DVD edition. This is still one of those in transit kind of editions, where they have to include the DVDs to entice the Blu-ray averse people to buy the product and hope they'll buy a Blu-ray player. But then those of us who have a Blu-ray player have two extra discs that we don't really need, and that inflated the price. So I think these are kind of on the way out, but they haven't. Just got a notification from a subscriber. Hello, and yeah. So this movie is pretty much credited with codifying the Giallo, the film that launched 1,000 Giallos. It's not really the first Giallo proper. I would say that as the prior years, The Girl Who Knew Too Much by Mario Bava also, and also known as The Evil Eye in America. And The Girl Who Knew Too Much is the translation of the Italian title, and of course is an homage to Alfred Hitchcock's The Man Who Knew Too Much. So Blood and Black Lace is one of those films that, for me anyway, I can watch it repeatedly. It is kind of a whole audio-visual experience. It's very endemic of its time, the mid-60s, with the fashions and the music, and also, of course, is one of the best examples of Bava's extreme use of color and lighting and contrast. It's like it's eye candy. It's beautiful to look at. Music's wonderful. I believe it's Carlo Rustichelli who did the Whip in the Body soundtrack, which is my favorite soundtrack by him, and my favorite Bava, really. But maybe one day I'll cover that if I haven't already. But not this Halloween. So Blood and Black Lace is kind of the urtext, excuse me, for the Giallos going forward. Essentially, you had murder mysteries in literature written by Edgar Wallace in Germany, and Agatha Christie in England, whodunits, and Agatha Christie's stuff was more like the British kind of stuffy drawing room mysteries. Murder was just murder. There was really no blood or violence going on. Edgar Wallace kind of took it up a little bit of a notch here. Edgar Wallace is really mainly known, when he's known today at all by name, as the co-creator of King Kong, which is certainly a giant feather in his cap. But he launched kind of a whole cinematic subgenre of horror or thriller in Germany called the Krimis, Krimi, and short for criminal. And the Krimis mostly were based on his work, not entirely. Some were based on his son's work. They were generally black and white. I think almost all of them were black and white. A lot of them featured a lot of stock German actors of the time, especially Klaus Kinski, who of course went on to kind of transcend that background, do numerous other international productions, and become kind of a crazy icon. But anyway, the Krimis ran for a few years, mainly late 50s to early 60s. And the early Giallos that immediately follow Bava's two breakout ones were rather Krimi influenced. They were a little more tame, a lot of them were still black and white. Some of them were groundbreaking in their own right, like Libido by Ernesto Gastaldi, who wrote quite a lot of the Italian genre films of different genres during that period. He's kind of the maestro of the screenplay during that period. But on the heels of the Krimis came kind of a more Agatha Christie-ish film, The Girl Who Knew Too Much, and very Hitchcockian. Beautiful black and white film, and it starred John Saxon and Letitia Ramon, and it's just kind of a fun caper kind of movie. It's a convoluted mystery, so it has a lot of the hallmarks of later giallos. It's a bit more light and audience friendly. Like I said, it played in America as the evil eye. Oh, but the next year, Bava upped everything. He directly took some concepts from the Krimis as far as the kind of killer he wanted to portray, and the police procedural aspect being more germane to the plot. And those things are eternal giallo tropes. The killer, of course, was like clad in black, a long black trench coat, black gloves, black hat, and a mask with no features. So he was essentially faceless. Now, that essential design for the giallo killer subsequently was used in numerous giallos. Not by no means all giallos. Giallos became very diverse during into the 1970s, to where you had a lot of kind of different kinds of giallos, but they generally followed the murder mystery thriller intrigue kind of template with stylish visuals and very hip music, and usually some kind of salacious sexuality and some violence, some kind of taboo breaking subjects. So it's it became a broad subgenre. There's even like Spanish giallos, a number of those, some of which were co-productions with Italy, and then a lot of the giallos were co-productions between Italy and other countries. But generally, the giallos were Italian-made or Italian co-productions. But Bava was there first. So Blood and Black Lace specifically, he uses some international stars of varying fame at the time, Cameron Mitchell and Ava Bartok, notably. And I believe Alan Collins is in it, who was considered the, what did Tim Lucas call him? The Italian Peter Lorre. That's not his real name. His real name is Italian, but he used Alan Collins as his stage name a lot. He was in a number of Bava films and just a bunch of Italian films of that period. Basically, it's like a place called Christian Haute Couture Salon, and it's a fashion house. So basically, there's a lot of models. They're designing their outfits. They're doing photo shoots, and one of them gets murdered in a particularly gruesome way. And then the police come in and they start grilling everyone. And of course, everyone's got some kind of alibi, but also some kind of particular quirk that makes them possibly suspicious. One guy is a hopped up cocaine addict, and he's kind of almost a stereotypically crazed, withdrawing character. Talked to some people who were offended by that stereotype, who are themselves drug users and not abusers. It didn't bother me. I mean, it's fine. I mean, it was a little humorous, a little broad, but arch. But think of the time. The fact that it's shown at all was interesting. Again, kind of taking things to another more adult level in these movies. Speaking of which, there's a lot of scantily clad women, hence the black lace in the title. One woman is murdered by being drowned by the killer, and she's just wearing her bra and panties, and her bra is see-through, so you can see her nipples. So that alone was kind of probably bold for back then, especially if this was shown when this was shown in America. They may have cut some shots in America. Not that would probably not be out of the realm of possibility. A lot of films I know did. This one I'm not 100% sure. But when they first come out on home video over here and they're called uncut, it usually isn't just hyperbole. It's that this is the first time Americans would see them uncut completely. Speaking of the murders, they are all, beautiful women, and they get increasingly sadistic. One of the murders kind of gets interrupted, and the killer seems a little flustered, and we eventually find out spoilers, that there really are two killers. There's Cameron Mitchell, a respectable guy. He's killing these women for some financially motivated reason, of course. And then Ava Bartok, who runs the salon, she is also very beautiful. She is the kind of backup killer. You know, as the killings went on, he began spurring her to help him do the killings and cover them up. And she didn't have quite as much of a stomach for it. So the scene where the killer gets a little, you know, clumsy and has trouble finally killing and disposing of the body, that's her. Um, and you know, they have a twisted kind of affair going on. Um, Basically, once they start killing, they can't stop killing because people start becoming suspicious, and they don't, you know, they can, I guess they feel they can't kill the police, but um, and more sadistic. You know, there's a lot of you know, the killer fries this woman's face by putting it straight down on a giant burning lamp, uh, and you know, there's stranglings, there's smackings, there's beatings, there's stabbings. So, you know, um, of course, the police are like, a sex maniac is on the loose. And yeah, it is a sadistic guy, Mitchell, but at the end, he kind of treats it as business as usual. It had to be done. And Ava is a little less sanguine about it. And he sets her up to do a crime in the killer garb, and she like apparently falls to her death, but she doesn't die, and she comes back, and you know she's all messed up, and he's still like, "Oh, I love you, baby," and he hugs her, and she shoots him in the heart. So this movie is, the plot wise, the plot is kind of simple. The premise is simple. The plot's a little convoluted, and that's what you came to find in a lot of giallos. Uh, and you know, you try to figure out who is the killer, what's the motive, and by the end of the movie you get the revelation, and a lot of times you've figured it out ahead of time. A lot of times it makes total sense if once you go back and rewatch it or think back, and sometimes it really doesn't make any sense, but you know, what the hell, you know, it's for shock value. It just depends on the filmmaker, the writer, you know, the era these came out. You know, it's always the law of diminishing returns. um, but there were some great later Jalos that came out even as early as the early to mid to night, came out as late as the early to mid 1980s. Argento's Tenebrae is a great example. Um, Essentially, the 63 to 82, I would kind of say, is the era of the Jalos. Other people dispute that. There are Jalos after 1982, of course. Uh, but the mindset had kind of changed, the vibe had changed, and let's be honest, the craftsmanship had changed. It wasn't to the level it was. It was really more shock and violence. The gore became more graphic, the sex became more graphic. But a lot of the filmmakers who really were brilliant in this area either passed away, like Mario Bava, or went into different directions, like Lucio Fulci, Sergio Martino. Of course, Argento continued to make giallos, and you know, and the more giallos he made, the more he kind of threatened to dilute his considerable legacy. I don't find his giallos post Tenebrae enjoyable. I have seen them all. Some I kind of wish I hadn't seen, just because it was like part of my life I'll never retrieve. But don't get me wrong, Argento did some great ones. Like The Bird with the Crystal Plumage takes the exact same visual, the same design of the killer, and also even does the same gender swap thing with the reveal, and takes it to another level. You know, makes it more modern. Again, the music is outstanding. He teamed with Ennio Morricone on his first three giallos. Visuals are great. The violence is intense. There's different inventive ways he kills people off. And in those films, Argento himself, in the POV shots, insisted on playing the black glove killer. So that's his hands under the black gloves. A lot of aficionados of this stuff have known this for years, but if not, I'm letting you know now. So I watch Blood and Like typically every year around this time. A Bava that I really insist on watching this time every year is Kill Baby Kill, which is one of my favorite gothic horrors, probably my second favorite after Castle of Blood, which I reviewed on this channel recently. And I do sometimes slip in Whipping the Body. I have quite a few of his on Blu-ray, and those are the ones those are the only ones I have left. I've sold all my DVD Bavas, so I'm gradually recollecting. Got about 6 Bavas on Blu-ray, and you know, 2 or 3 of them I do watch every Halloween season. I did not review this one last year during the Halloween season. Maybe I didn't even have it yet. I did not review it on my Arrow Horror Thrillers series. I did 3 different films that Arrow did outstanding releases of that were in the horror thriller genres. I did JD's Revenge, Cruising, and Cat o' Nine Tails by Dario Argento, which is my favorite Giallo and my favorite Argento by far. And a lot of people think I'm totally insane when I say that. But anyway, it didn't get its own show and it didn't get its Halloween enshrinement, so now here it is. Consider it covered. A highly recommended, pivotal, seminal film. It has kind of an intoxicating, it's a very sensual film. You know, the like I said, the sounds and the visuals are really spellbinding. Bava didn't get nearly as much credit until really recent years for how great of a cinematographer and filmmaker he was. So moving on, there's a film that was co-directed by a guy named Sidney Salkow, and this one doesn't have the Italian guy's name who co-directed it. Well, I am really annoyed. It doesn't have it on the DVD. This is a DVD that is now out of print, and I'm selling it, but it has just come out on Blu-ray, and that's why I'm selling it. It's a long-time favorite, but it's an AIP, American International Pictures distributed title, but it is an Italian co-production, and it has a largely Italian cast, except for the star, which is Mr. Vincent Price, and this is Last Man on Earth. This is the old MGM edition, which came out kind of late in the MGM Vincent Price cycle, and I was really excited. I had seen this before on videotape and adored it, and this was a wonderful revelation as a purchase, and I'm excited to see the Blu-ray when I can ever afford it. If anyone wants to purchase it for me to review, the info's down at the bottom in the descriptions, and you too can be a permanent channel patron. So, Last Man on Earth. So this is also 1964. This one, the original script was written by Richard Matheson, who wrote the novel I Am Legend, which this is based upon. This was the first of 3 films based upon I Am Legend. So a guy named William Leicester doctored his script, and he hated the results so much that when he was given script credit, he asked to be named Logan Swanson. So when you see Logan Swanson as the screenwriter, that is indeed Richard Matheson. So Matheson's book basically is the last man on Earth, the last adult human male on Earth that's not afflicted with this vampirism curse. So basically the book is showing modern vampirism through a scientific lens, and then taken to its extreme. And then, of course, the irony of the title is that Robert Neville, the main character, who was a scientist and has somehow achieved immunity to this virus, this plague that has turned humanity gradually into vampires, that kills them off and they come back to life as vampires. And so they use the standard vampiric tropes to ward them off, like they put up mirrors in their houses and garlic, cloves of garlic, wreaths of garlic. They use stakes to kill them. They can't come out during the daytime. They're also blind and they stagger around. And, they are killers. They are blood drinkers. But they fear Neville because he is like the vampire slayer #1 and only. And basically he spends his daytime hours kind of getting into their hiding places and whacking a stake through their heart. So of course he's presented as the good guy, but the vampires, he's a legend, something that they fear. just as humans would have feared vampires for centuries. So hence comes the I Am Legend and the realization at the end. And of course, that's a little manipulative of the audience, which a writer is perfectly allowed to do. Uh, so you call into question for a second, is he the bad guy? You know, like if humanity's all become vampires, then and he's killing them all, then he's the scourge, not the vampires. But um, personally, I don't know how Matheson felt about that idea. I personally think it's a kind of just a bait and switch kind of provocative idea. There's nothing in the movie, any of these movies, that suggests the vampires are anything less than ruthless killers. Um, it's not like they really have real communities where they are, you know, doing anything positive to restore the earth after everybody's died. They're really just hunters and killers, and who knows what they're feeding on if they're all vampires. But there are still some humans wandering around who have the plague and who are possible victims of vampires, but Neville doesn't know about them at first. So Vincent Price plays Neville, and essentially there was this plague of unknown origin, and he's one of the virologists that's working on it. And you know, gradually more and more people have it, and they start disposing of the dead by burning them, because the kind of the people in charge, so to speak, they kind of know that we're dealing with vampirism, real vampirism. Neville is very skeptical, and then his lab partner, played by Giacomo Rossi Stewart, who played in Bava's Kill Baby Kill, he's like of the notion that, yeah, we can't explain this. These are vampires. They act like vampires. This is why they're being burnt and destroyed, put in these huge pits of bodies. Price doesn't buy that until it happens to his family. His daughter dies of the plague, and the wife has reported it. And basically, once you report someone who's dead or dying, even they'll snatch them away and then they'll burn their bodies. And Price doesn't want that to happen to his daughter, so that's when he first begins questioning the system, the way these things are being dealt with, and he can't stop his daughter's body from being disposed of. And then his wife gets it and attacks him, and he has to kill her. And you know, then that's when he realizes that his buddy was right. Not only that, his buddy Rossi Stewart is now one of the vampires, and he is one who constantly tries to invade Neville's home every night by screaming, Neville. Well, okay, in the movie he's called Robert Morgan. Don't ask me why. It's one of those why they would do it. You know, movies did this all the time in the old days with adaptations, and don't do it as much nowadays with fans protesting such changes. But they're like, Morgan, come out. You know, and of course, that from the novel is Neville come out. In the next iteration of this story, the Omega Man with Charlton Heston, made several years later, they do have the famous Neville come out. And you know, so they basically bang blindly on his house every night, and he has to kind of tune them out, put on records, and drink a little, and then the next day he's off again, you know, hunting and killing and getting supplies, you know, at will, because there's nobody anywhere, and it's pretty well shot. It's pretty convincing. The kind of it's the first movie to do that I know of, to do that very last person, and they film large stretches of cityscape and landscape with there's absolutely no people there. In Omega Man, it's a little more ambitious. They actually got scenes of, I think it takes place in Los Angeles in that one, and they actually get to where they get aerial shots and long distance shots, and there's nobody around. So they, you know, the production had the money, Warner Brothers, to clear like many city blocks of people completely, so they could, you know, quickly get these shots. With the third iteration, I Am Legend, call it I Am Legend, you know, they can just CGI everybody out. So, you know, a better modern view of the situation was done in a riff on an admitted riff on I Am Legend and its descendants, called 28 Days Later by Danny Boyle, which I reviewed the sequel 28 Weeks Later on this channel during the Halloween 2021 offerings earlier. So Last Man on Earth is a movie that gets like unfairly knocked. It really doesn't get much respect. A lot of people who got into it as a kid, which I wasn't one, I was not even aware of its existence till well after I'd seen the Omega Man and was familiar with Richard Matheson. But a lot of people who come to it as fans of the book or who have seen the Omega Man or Perish Forbid, the modern I Am Legend film with Will Smith first, here we go with the fan bro thing. They tend to get on the internet and slam this film. They're either younger people who, like the I Am Legend with Will Smith better, or they're people who kind of are know-it-all older fans who are kind of like either it doesn't follow the book enough, or the Omega Man at least was more entertaining. This is boring. One of the common complaints is Vincent Price played against type. Oh, Perish Forbid, he played against type. This movie, he plays the most against type of any film he was in, except for Witchfinder General or Conqueror 1. Two roles that are polar opposites, but neither of them have the campier aspects of any of his other performances that I've seen, which are many dozens. And he plays it very straight. He is a hero. He is an everyman. But he is kind of an urbane guy who's kind of trying to live his life in solitude. He's not the sarcastic Neville that Charlton Heston is, who tries to kind of joke his way through things. Charlton Heston's Neville is kind of like an army scientist, I believe, and so he does have some military training, and he does, he is really good with the machine gun, mowing down the infected people. Will Smith's character was basically the same as Heston's, also named Neville, and also kind of a military scientist, though he was black, which is no big deal, except it brings up an ironic point, kind of an annoying point. It's when the I Am Legend of Will Smith came out. Richard Matheson went on record, of course, helping promote it and talk about it in interviews. And Matheson was getting way up in his elder years, and I actually had a close friend at the time. He and his wife had gotten to know Richard Matheson by interviewing him and kind of hanging out with him as little acolytes. And they loved I Am Legend, the movie, and I didn't care for it. But I read an interview with Matheson where he said, he hated the Vincent Price version. He thought The Last Man on Earth was a terrible movie, and that's why he had his name removed from it. But most of all, he hated Vincent Price as Robert Neville. He said it was a total miscast. He said he was totally wrong for the part physically and in demeanor. Now, in the book, Robert Neville is described as a very Germanic-looking character, very Aryan-looking character. I mean, there's no hints of Nazism or anything, but he is like a blonde, blue-eyed, pale-skinned guy who's kind of not muscle-bound, but fit, his struggles are more internal than external, but externally he's like kind of how a hero was kind of envisioned back in those days. Think of Steve Rogers, Captain America, played by Chris Evans, more or less. So then, Matheson rages that Price, he's raged for decades that Price was, unfit and he didn't look like the part. He was, just totally physically unsuited, and his demeanor and his acting were totally off. I've already addressed the acting, which is that he was going against type, but he did it brilliantly, in my opinion. I thought he translated the character in the book, his internal struggles and his personality perfectly. No, of course he didn't look anything like an Aryan-looking guy. But then Matheson said, in contrast to Vincent Price's portrayal, that Will Smith's Robert Neville was perfect. He looked and acted perfect. So I thought, okay, so he didn't like Vincent Price because he was like a brunette with a mustache and slight of stature. Didn't look heroic, didn't look Germanic and blonde, blue-eyed. But Will Smith, who was an African-American man of also slight, well, depending on the movie, slight or pumped up stature, uh, was perfect. So I wondered if Mr. Matheson was maybe having some onset dementia. I mean, I asked my friend and his wife, why did he say these ridiculous comments in these interviews? And of course, they defended him and said, well, first of all, it's his book. He can think what he wants. Okay, fair enough. And he could, I guess, change his mind over the decades, and not be a hypocrite like he sounded. But also, they revered the modern version. I did not like the modern version, really, in any way. Um, it's closer to the Omega Man in tonality than it is to Last Man on Earth, which means it's even further from the book. Um, Basically, the only way they made it fall in line with the book more is that his name is Neville and not Morgan, like in the first adaptation, and also that he has the dog companion for a little while. But Will Smith, like, the dog is like his buddy until he gets infected, and the dog, like, dies a heroic death, and it is the only worthwhile scene in the movie. I mean that, the only worthwhile scene. To me, it's an unwatchable movie. Um, but the CGI really, really, really drags down the verisimilitude of the creatures who have evolved to yet another stage. In the novel and in this movie, Last Man on Earth, they are vampires. In the Omega Man, they're kind of sort of undead, kind of zombie-ish. They're like a cult, like a Manson process church, kind of very 70s kind of cult led by a guy who had been a newscaster. And he becomes the leader of this cult. And he's played by Anthony Zerbe, who does a great job. He has some great dialogue. I have to say that is not in the book. Where he tells him how he's going to destroy all science, and Neville is a symbol of that world, and it's like, we're going to destroy everything, all you knew. I wish I could quote the whole thing, but it's really beautiful. And Heston, man, it's Heston. Whether he's appropriate or not, that was his era of science fiction cautionary heroism. And of course, to me, with that and Soylent Green and the two Apes movies he's in, he's a towering icon. So we're not going to quibble about, was he a great actor or was he a right wing guy in real life. None of that it matters in this context to me. So, and Price was also an icon. And in this movie, he does it. He becomes iconic in an inauspicious way. He's not a ham. And in this movie, he doesn't have the dog very long. It's closer to the book. And I got to say, the 5 minutes or 10 minutes at most he has with the dog are much more powerful than the hour Will Smith has with the dog, or indeed the whole Will Smith film. They're tear-inducing to me. You think of a guy who's completely alone in the world. There's no other living beings, and he encounters a dog, a pet, an animal, man's best friend, so to speak, and he's like, "We're gonna have good times together. We're gonna be around a long time together," and it's sad because he takes a blood test and puts some stuff under a microscope of some of his hair, and he realizes, he starts laughing, with this laugh he has a couple of times, which is like, of course, this is the whole thing. The whole thing is a cruel joke. Naturally, the dog is also infected. It's a little heartbreaking, but the following scene is maybe unintentionally humorous because he takes the dog. The dog's wrapped in swaddling, and he's taking the dog out to bury. But there's a stake going through into this pile of sheets the dog's supposedly in. So the dog turned, and he had to stake him like any other vampire. And leave the stake in him, I guess, or he'd come back to life, if you go by a lot of vampire lore. But it was just like so funny. He's taking this little pitiful bundle that was his dog, but he's got the stake in it too, so your brain fills in the scene where the dog dies, comes back, and tries to vampirize him, and he has to stake his little buddy. So he eventually finds pockets of humans, people who are about to turn. That is from the novel, and that is used in the Omega Man and in the I Am Legend modern version. Though they're done from different. They're done differently in each situation. In this situation, he finds a woman wandering, and she's been enlisted to lure him in because they're going to murder him because he's killed so many of their their kind, and he's the legend. Um, but she realizes after a while, he gives her some of his blood. He does a transfusion, and she's cured. And she realizes then that, hold on, this guy could make us human again and normal, and we don't really want to be these things that we're turning into. And the ones that got killed, I mean, they were vampires, you know. And her point, larger point to him, is that he accidentally killed some people who hadn't completely turned. They were just resistant to sunlight and kind of sleeping during the day. And he just assumed they were full-fledged vampires, which he apologizes for. I mean, how could he know? But he does know, and he offers, you know, he doesn't mind curing these people, but at the same time, she's made it very clear that they hate him and they want to kill him. So she tries to urge him to get away when they come, and they're all like paramilitarized, you know, and some of them have machine guns. And there's a very small pocket of these kind of people in the Omega Man, except in the Omega Man, they befriend Robert. They want to be cured. But in this one, they do shoot and kill the vampire. Now, vampires can be killed by bullets through the heart, normal bullets too. And they've gunned down the vampires that have been pestering Neville through the movie, but they also want to capture Neville. And they do, and then he gets away again. He's very clever. He's a survivor, man. And finally, you know, despite the woman pleading, they're basically like, you know, he's trying to reason with them, and he realizes that they're kind of beyond reasoning with, and that even though some of them, especially the woman who was cured, may want to be cured, a lot of them are basically whatever, you know, we're turning into vampires. I mean, they're kind of hypocritical because they gunned down all those fully turned vampires, but then they basically seem to be like, you know, we've created this whole society and we're afraid of you and you're going to go down, man, because you've done so much damage. And it's a bizarre viewpoint. And like I said, it's very amplified in the Omega Man to where they're actually like a cult, you know, and when they're in that state, they turned, they're basically under the thrall of the leader played by Zerby. I want to say his name's Elias. Is that the name of the character? I could be wrong. He has a cool name. I can't remember what it is. After all these decades of being in this movie, I think it's Elias. You can correct me. So I don't know. They're kind of assholes, and they finally like hurl a, you know, like a spear at Neville, and it hits him in the heart, and you know, and they're kind of ragging on this is because he's been cornered by them, and he starts just going off on them verbally. He's like, you know, basically, sorry, you're monsters, you know, and you don't want to change, you know, you're not supposed to be this way, you know, and he's like, I'm a man, you know, and they hurl the thing into his heart, and he's like the last man, and it's really awful to see him die. I thought he was a very heroic yet very human kind of character. And I don't mean human in relief to vampires, but human as in relatable. He really portrays the whole thing of how someone's mindset would be being literally this guy, the only human man left on Earth, and it's weird that I saw this so many years after the Omega Man, because I really think the Omega Man, under all its bravado and camp, does have a sensitivity to it with in the same way, a tragedy. It's in the end of Omega Man, Neville dies, and again he's killed by a spear too, by the cult, but he's managed to get the formula made from his blood, and one of the other living people who hasn't turned, who's really kind of a cool guy, like a young hippie guy, he gets it just in time, and Neville's kind of left sprawled across this water fountain, and you know he's got the spear and he's bleeding, and he hands it with his bloody hands. He almost drops the formula, but they catch it, and so the shot lingers on him as it ends, and of course he's like a Christ-like figure. He's been crucified, and he's given his blood to save humanity. So I like that take too, though, you know. So I have the Omega Man on Blu-ray too. Maybe one day I'll review it. So, but I'm not going to review the other movie. I'm just not. So anyway, those are my two for today. I think they're both very appropriate for Halloween, mad slashers and vampires. So I'll be back with another one. I'm glad I've been able to keep these kind of short. I want to thank new subscribers who've been supportive, who've been coming in the last few days, and I've been getting slightly more likes, and I appreciate it, but I'm still getting virtually none compared to how many people are watching. So again, if you don't like the movie videos, that's cool. But if you do like them, please leave a like. Please, I beg of thee. But anyway, we all have free will, so you don't have to, but I'd really appreciate it. So thank you, and I'll be back soon.